host an NCAA tournament. Here we go. What's the excitement level like for you and now the girls after it's kind of set in a little bit here?
You know, I think it's pretty exciting. You know, this has been a goal that we've set. We've set it for a couple of years, so to reach it is good. Now we've got to take advantage of it, and we've arguably the toughest pod. You know, we've got 3 teams that are in the top 25, and we've spent a lot of time watching Coastal Carolina, and they're dang good. So it's going to be great volleyball, and hopefully our fans will help us play our best.
I mean, obviously based on the RPI, it's kind of about where you thought, but typically, you know, if you're not in a major traditional power volleyball conference, you don't get the benefit of the doubt with your seeding. Why do you think that, you know, you guys were able to maybe bump a little bit up where you thought maybe you'd be 12, 13, something like that?
Well, this year the committee was very RPI driven, and last year they weren't as much. So that's the hard part with scheduling, is you don't know. But the other thing this year is we had the wins. You know, last year we didn't have as many top 25 wins. I think we only had 1, and we had a lot of close matches. This year, you know, we've got 2 wins over, you know, top 10 teams. So, you know, I think that carried weight, and obviously I think the committee respected mid-majors more this year. I think you saw that not only with us but several other teams, you know, Wichita getting to host, High Point getting in, that it wasn't a BCS only driven selection committee this year, which I think is great to see, and I think it's good for our sport.
Kirsten, just talk about the atmosphere here Friday night, this weekend. If you win on Friday, what this means for the program to be hosting in the NCAA tournament here.
Yeah, you know, I think our atmosphere is up there with the best in the country when we pack this place out. And so, you know, we're hopeful that it'll be a packed house. You know, it's obviously a little bit different that you can't have the music. You can't one-side it. You know, you have to keep it equal, unfortunately. But it's big for our program. I think it's not only big for this group, it's big for the groups that came before us, before this group that built to this moment. And I think it's big for our future. You know, again, hopefully it'll help us in recruiting to hopefully sustain where we are. And, you know, our goal is to win a national championship at some point. So, you know, these are steps toward that ultimate goal.
How much did that Elite 8 appearance a year ago help this team get to this point and maybe beyond?
Well, I think what that did was affirm to that group that, you know, they can play with the upper echelon in the country, and we return a lot of players from that team. So, you know, as I said this the other day, this group respects everybody. They know that Coastal Carolina on Friday could beat them very easily if we don't play well. But the other flip side is they fear nobody. You know, so no matter who's on the other side of the court, they believe that they can take them. And I think that's a really great balance to have within a group that understands that you have to play your best to be successful, but never be fearful of someone on the other side.
Does Coastal run a 2-setter system? That's different from when you last played them, right?
They usually run a 6-2. They'll pop into a 5-1 sometimes, but generally it's a 6-2.
I think you've played a handful of teams that have done that this year. How do you feel like you match up with that style?
You know, I think we're fine. You know, I think the good thing with us is that we don't have a scenario that some teams have, that they have a really huge right side block and then a really small right side block, or a really big left side block and a really small left side block. We've got pretty good pieces all over, so matchups generally for us aren't as big of a deal as it might be when I've had, you know, when I started we had a 5-6 setter, so matchups were really important. You know, you needed to put your bigger kid up against, you know, their big stud up against our bigger block. So, yeah, I don't think that there's many things that concern me, but that's not a concern at this point.
How about the way the season finished? You know, the last regular season weekend maybe wasn't as solid as you were hoping. So to go through the tournament, win it, just kind of put your stamp back on things. I mean, confidence-wise for this group, how important was that?
I think it was really good to avenge that Villanova loss, because they not only beat us, they beat us pretty decisively, and then for us to come back and kind of say, okay, here are adjustments we need to make, this is why this happened, and for us to then be able to make those changes and come out and play a great match was really big. And then we knew Marquette. You know, Marquette was fun because when we played them earlier in the year, the first time we played so bad and they played so good, and then the roles reversed and they played so bad. So it was, we know Marquette's a dang good team, and it was fun for both teams to play at a pretty high level, and it ended up being a great match.
I think Rob tweeted that Hardman was, I think, third active player in kills in the tournament, still alive. What do you see on film that's different or better about her from when you faced her in Chapel Hill?
Hardeman is really fun to watch, and I think anyone that loves volleyball, she's so fluid. She's like a dancer in the air, is how we've even said. I mean, she kind of flies up there, and she can contort her body in the air that very few athletes can, and then she's got a whip of an arm. You know, honestly, Matt, I just remember her being a stud and being really athletic. I can't remember nuances from 2 years ago. I'm far too old for that, but I know she hit close to 300, and the thing that I would say that is really noticeable is she's as good in the back row as she is in the front row, which makes her really difficult to defend.
What did you guys do well last weekend that maybe you didn't do at Villanova, at Georgetown?
We played better defense, you know, and that had been a huge priority for a couple weeks, and and I'm not even just talking backcourt defense. Our blocking, you know, our knock against Villanova was we were just getting tooled over and over on the block, and we did a much better job of shoring up that. I thought we had too many net violations, but we were much cleaner on not letting them use and abuse us as we were the first time we played, or the time we played Villanova the week before.
Brittney got Libero of the Year. Talk about what she's meant to this team, and go back to a year ago when she got hit
in the eye.
In the eye,
yeah.
And what she's meant.
You know, Brittney's special. You know, and the great thing is that she's good all the time, but she almost gets better when there's more on the line. And I love that about her. You see players either step up or get nervous, and you love players that kind of step up. You know, the eye injury was fascinating because she never skipped a beat. And I've said this before, but like she never missed a practice. So we got done with season. That was the end of our season. And by the time we arrived in January, she'd had surgery. She healed up and she looked normal. So, you know, and she just never complained a whit about that. Oh, that was a pun. Did everyone get that? Never complained a whit about that. But she, you know, she's just a winner, and I love that about Marion kids. You know, when we recruit those Marion kids, they are, the culture at Marion is so good that they're trained to kind of do that. They're used to winning, and there's something to be said about people that walk on the court expecting to win, and I think Brittney is that sort of kid.
When you have a hometown product excel like that at that level and get Player of the Year at Libero, what's that mean?
Well, it makes you fortunate that you're in a volleyball state, you know, that we've got so much talent in the area. And, you know, I think I guess we've gotten Libero year one other time earlier, 5-6 years ago, probably longer than that. But, you know, I think it really is a testament to how great our club and high school system is that, you know, we can get these hometown kids. And you've seen that in a lot of different programs that, you know, Nebraska-laden teams.
Last year at this time, it looked like Marissa was the kid that was the key cog that was starting to come on down the stretch. This year it looks like Terran is putting together a late run here. What's been different about her the last couple of weeks of the season?
I think Terran wants to be so, you know, I always say we have a team full of perfectionists. And so Terran sometimes puts pressure on herself. And I think about a month ago she just said, I'm just going to enjoy this. And there's something to be said about just going and playing the game that you love. And I think it's freed her up. And she has been outstanding. And, you know, I felt like last year Marissa kind of got hosed not being a first teamer. I think Terran was that kid. You know, I think I would argue that she's definitely one of the 12 best kids in the league. And this is what I love about it, that, you know, I don't think she skipped a beat that she made second team. It's not about that. But what I loved is she goes to the Big East tournament and, you know, is a huge cog, gets tournament MVP, and, you know, that's how you want players to respond.
How about the crowd's response that you expect for this weekend? It's been building something. You've had, you know, attendance on the rise, but it's a different deal with a full weekend like this and the slate of teams that you have. What do you expect this environment to be like here versus, you know, hosting the Big East tournament and championship games and things like that?
I think it'll probably be pretty similar to when we hosted that tournament the second weekend when we had Kentucky, UNI, and USC, and that was just such a great atmosphere. So, you know, that's what we're hoping and that's what we're anticipating. And, you know, but they'll have more fans than a lot of those teams will because they'll obviously travel. I know Missouri State's bringing a band and, you know, some of those things that create the championship atmosphere. But, you know, I think the big thing is we want the players to enjoy every minute of it. You want to enjoy the prep. You want to enjoy the dinners beforehand, and then you want to go out and play your best and let the chips fall.
Do you get to keep your locker room?
We do. Thank you very much.
Do you think the NIT is good for this sport?
I think the NIT is fabulous for this sport.
It didn't seem like a lot of teams kind of embraced that this year. There were teams that probably had an opportunity to extend their seasons that didn't. Do you think schools should? I know there's logistics behind the scenes that go into that sort of thing, extending your season in that. But I mean, is there value in having postseason matches and playing for a title?
For sure. And I think, and I'm disappointed that not everyone does it, and it comes down to cost of schools if they're willing to put in the money to do it. But I look at a lot of banners for basketball, and it doesn't say which tournament, it says postseason play. And what it does is help us in recruiting, and it gives you another couple weeks to play. And I think the question is going to be, do fans come out and, I get frustrated when people poo-poo it, like, oh, it's not the NCAA tournament, why should you do that? Well, why not? I mean, these kids work their tail off for an opportunity, and precedent in basketball and football, I mean, everyone makes a bowl,
right.
almost. So this is still not, this is still only less than a third of our teams getting to play in the postseason by adding it. So, yeah, I think it's really good for our sport.
The no fear mentality you talked about earlier, I mean, of the players on the team, who kind of shows that more than others?
I think the good thing is that that's something they all kind of pride themselves in. I don't think it's a player that leads that. I think they have an idea of, if someone tips at endgame, they're going to be angry with that person. So unless it was out of necessity. But if you get a good set to you and you do something passive, there's peer pressure that that's not okay. Now, if you boom that ball out of bounds and you went for it, there's going to be well, at least we went for it sort of mentality. So it's just kind of the culture that we try to build of, I always say, if you're going to lose, would you rather lose going for it, or would you rather lose throwing a free ball over and having them rip it down your throat? I'd rather lose going for it. So there's always risk, and life's about risks, and just embracing the risk is what we try to preach.